All right, thanks, Kim, very much. Yeah, I got to straighten my paperwork a little. That's all right. So as Kim said, my name's Doug Lubahn. I'm the Vice President of Threat at BlackFog. And I'll give you a quick introduction of myself. 15 years in cybersecurity, 10 years with Absolute Software, and then I was out in the small business virtual CISO world for a few years, and been at BlackFog for a little over a year now. And prior to that, it was 26 years with the Michigan State Police, and 15 years on the road. It's about 3 years in organized crime, political corruption, and then I worked my way up the command structure. Retired out as a post commander up in northwest Oakland County at the Groveland post. For those of you that know where Mount Holly Ski Resort is, that was my post. So thank you. So that's me. So I'll hand the microphone off and let the rest of my panel introduce themselves, and they've got their own microphone.
Test? Yep. Thank you. It's great to see everybody, friends and colleagues in person. It's been a long time. So Wally Dalrymple. I'm the CISO for Emergent Holdings as part of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. It's great to see friends that I haven't seen in a long time. And I've been in the area for a long time. And probably know a lot of you from my days at GM and then with Blue Cross. So thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Great to see many familiar faces. It's been a long time. My first in-person event. Great to see you all. I'm Christy Wheaton, Chief Information Privacy and Security Officer, Henry Ford Health. We dropped the word system. We have a new logo, and it's wonderful. And it's really to convey, that we're all about you. So I hope that helps. I've been in Michigan for my entire career, and I've been at a few different companies. I recognize some of you here from Ally Bank, GE Capital, General Motors, and Henry Ford, of course. So great to be here. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to sit because I'm not getting up every time we answer a question. So I'm going to reestablish that we're sitting from now on. So I'm Earl Duby. I'm the CISO at Lear Corporation. I'm also the chapter president for the CSA Detroit. So I've done a few of these in-person events, so I'm not quite as intimidated as I normally would be because we have been back in person for CSA since January. So come out and see us. First Tuesday of every month, CSA Tuesday. I've been doing this for, 25 years or whatever. So, it's been a long journey, not nearly as illustrious as Doug here, but, I think we've all kind of seen the ebb and flow of security, and I would tell you that the world we're living in today is the most chaotic world I've ever seen in my career. So I'm sure we'll get some of that out as we answer these questions, but man, any of you guys that are new to security, I feel sorry for you because you didn't get to ease into it like we did.
All right. Well, thank you all, for, panelists. And I think we'll start out the right way. So it is a lot of people's first event. I literally was so excited last night to get out in the real world and talk to people at an event. I've attended all the CSAs virtually. So, but how about we raise a glass and thank Kim and the crew for a great conference here at FutureCon, and cheers. So this is going to be a pretty open format. I am going to ask my panel some questions, but we'd also like input from you guys as well. So if you got like I said, at a certain time I'll reach out to the audience for some input, but we'll get started right away. So yeah, age is showing, the glasses have to come on, and then I have to take them off to see you again. That's the reality of it. So at the top of everyone's mind is nation-state attacks, our nation-state attacks, currently all the Russian issues, etc. How have you responded, and what kind of status are you communicating back to your teams and to the board of directors? So,
All right, I'll start. I'll kick that one off. So yeah, nervousness, right? Concern. It is something that we're prepared for, and I think it's the preparedness that the business is looking for us to provide back to them. Are we prepared? Have we gone through our security incident plan to make sure that everything is documented, everybody's ready to go? The names haven't changed, everybody still has those same roles. But we're also working, I think it's really important, because we rely on our vendors and our partners, right? So we're reaching out, we can't do it by ourselves. So I'm reaching out and saying, are our vendors prepared? Because, you know, the weakest link sometimes can be a vendor that you're working with that handles some of your confidential data and your important business processes. So with that, it's a continuous thing where we've gone through our BCP plan again, just in case. We're, you know, looking closer at some of the vulnerabilities. We've gone, and if you can do this, it's great. If not, but we've looked at some geofencing. Maybe there's some countries that we don't want information coming from that we can block at our firewalls if that capability is there for you. So we've looked at both the technical and then the communication part, which is a big part of my role, is making sure that the business constituents understand what we're doing and that we're prepared. Otherwise, I will just get a continuous influx of emails asking me the same question over and over again. Christy?
Sure, thank you. I agree with everything that you shared. In addition to that, there's a couple of other things we've done. We did implement, I'll call it a soft freeze for changes, just to really limit the volatility in the environment. Back to the board question, as with any new threat, big ones at least, we do let the board know. I let the board know, and I also let them know what it is we're doing and really how our program to date has been all about getting prepared. In terms of the, I'll say forward-looking with our business, we're doing also making sure they know that we're prepared, but we're trying to force the issue of making sure they're prepared. We're going to have a series of we've started this, rolling tabletops, I'm calling, where we start with the top of the house and we go down and we go down and we go down. And really the biggest finding that I know they will have is going to be, do we have everyone's phone numbers? And, you know, do we know who's supposed to work tomorrow, you know, in the hospitals or whatever, as well as their business continuity plans. And we're really trying to drive that home. I mean, it's basically, I don't want to say a full-time focus, but it basically is every conversation I'm having, I'm talking about that with folks. And we're seeing business groups dust off their plans, and they're proud, and that's great. In a hospital setting, you know, we have to be prepared for, you know, significant impact. And so literally, what will we do? So, do you have anything to add?
Sure, I always have something to add.
Thanks.
So, you know, we're kind of past that phase of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You know, and normally you're trying to like inspire your business to do something. You know, whether it's through like, hey, ransomware is huge, it's a big problem, or whatever. So we're kind of past that. So it's kind of the silver lining in all of this is that, you know, you look at the Wall Street Journal, there's always a story in there about some ransomware attack, or you look in, you know, any kind of newspaper, and this stuff is in there. So the good thing is the business is starting to see this. And so it's not just me or the security team having to go out and tell this story. They're actually bringing it to us going, hey, did you read this story in the Detroit News or whatever? And so even though this is probably the most chaotic time I've seen in my career, it's also a good opportunity for the business to be seeing it from some other perspective other than just me, which is good. And so we're doing a lot of the same things you guys are talking about. And what's beneficial is when we go and say, hey, we need to test our crisis communication plan, or we need to do a tabletop exercise, you don't have to spend, you know, any time saying this is why we're doing this. They just get it. And so hopefully, you know, all of your businesses are kind of in that same boat where, you know, you're capitalizing on what's showing up in just the regular media and using that as a teachable moment for people. So it's not just, oh, security's, you know, trying to scare us into this stuff. It's like, no, this is like actual headlines. These are actual stories, and they'll bring it to you, and then you can use that as a partnership opportunity as opposed to just, you know, scaring people to do something.
Great. So a couple quick follow-ups to that, because you guys brought out some really cool points, but and I'll just throw this out there. InfraGard, great partnership. I know most everyone in this room should know about them, but they should also be members and use them. And also the state police. We're blessed here in the state of Michigan, not that it's my former agency, but I'm very proud of the cyber team at the state police. Oakland County has a great one, several of the other, Washtenaw County. All down here in southeast Michigan, we've got some fantastic cyber units. And if you don't already know who your contacts are there, all I want to implore upon you is to find out. Make a phone call. They're there to help. The misnomers of the days gone by are the days gone by. I can state that with definitive. And with the upcoming reporting requirements and things that have changed over the last 15, 20 years, the adversarial relationship with law enforcement, cyber, and private sector is gone. And so I'll just add that, employ that.
I would agree with that. You know, anyone here can join InfraGard, right?
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
so if
you
you're
have to get
not
vetted,
a member of
but-
InfraGard, definitely do that because, you know, we were just having an InfraGard meeting a couple weeks ago, and you know, the FBI is very interested in working with private industry. You know, and like you said, this was not even the case 5 years ago.
No, exactly.
You know, this has changed over probably the last 3 or 4 years that the FBI is much more willing to sit down with any of us and start to understand the risks that we all face. And really what they want are the indicators of compromise or the indicators of attack. So if you guys get, you know, compromised or attacked, you can give that over to the FBI. And what they're also better at now than they were in the past is actually getting back to you.
Yeah.
You know, before it was like, hey, dump it in the box and forget about it. But
Yep.
now I sent them some stuff last year, and they actually had a briefing with me. And for like 2 hours, I was on the phone with an agent from New York, you know, talking about a certain threat actor that, you know, I was dealing with. And so they're much more interactive now than they have been in the past.
Yep, and they're very, like you said, Earl, they're very responsive, and they're also very willing to share. We all learned from basically the 9/11 attacks, the lack of interoperability, easy for me to say, and sharing. That was old school, and it needed to change badly, and it has changed. So I'll touch on a quick comment you made, Wallace, otherwise I'd forget it. It's old-timers disease, but geofencing, anybody that does geofencing for countries, list the country of reunion, .re. If you haven't already done that, the Revel gang, we started seeing this at our company. The Revel gang was starting to use the .re domain. We had 7 attacks in 2 days' time, 7 ransomware attacks. And so we've added it to our default list. But .re, it's a beautiful little country off the coast of France. And the Revel gang has decided to make use of it because the .re stands for Revel. So add that in. So, all right. Next question. It's kind of going to flow into 2 questions, but do your boards and non-security business leaders care about cybersecurity, or are they just telling themselves that, and do they need to understand it? And at the same time, what role does or should your board or your leadership have in a cyber event? You can answer either end of that equation as carefully as you can.
Yes, so I'll say yes, our board does care.
Thank
right?
you.
So yes, and you know, I would, you know, optimistically hope that all the boards care, right? And just based off of experiences is what I'll talk about. Is so when you get a chance to talk to the board, sometimes there's obstacles that you must overcome. One of them is understanding, you know, what they're looking for from you. So you have a very short period of time, sometimes under 10 minutes, to basically communicate cybersecurity risk and provide any updates that would provide value to your business. And so after multiple attempts, you know, I think in every company is different, is you know, trying to, my experience is aligning the cybersecurity program to the business goals, because the questions, the first couple times I presented to the board, I got 0 questions. So then I started getting a complex because I was wondering why they didn't ask me any questions. And so I was worried about, was I delivering the right message? Because, you know, if it's 1 time a year and you've got 7 minutes to deliver a message, a little bit of stress, a little bit of anxiety, and you have to be very precise and deliberate in your communication because you have 7 minutes. And so after a period of time, when I started getting questions back, that's when I know I was actually hitting on something that the board was interested in and wanted to know that was an impact or potential impact or could be an impact to our business. And the last board presentation, of course, was virtual. You know, one of the questions I got when we started talking about, you know, security incidents and attacks and ransomware, one of the questions that I got, so I got 2 questions, which I was very excited about getting 2 questions. And one of those questions was, who is more at risk of a ransomware attack? our corporate organization or our suppliers. And it didn't really take me any time at all to say it was our suppliers, right? Because that is something is unknown, don't have all the details. You know, I can't see it, I can't touch it always. I rely on them to provide the information about their own security posture. You know, we can give them 1,000 questions on a questionnaire, but are those questions accurate? Are those questions really focused on where our confidential data is? And so in healthcare, PHI is very valuable, and we're constantly, as Christy would confirm, under attack, right? So knowing who has access to the data and that they have the same type of, I don't expect they have the same security controls, because I suspect they might not have as many resources, they might not have the budget, but what level do they have, and is that level of risk acceptable? So that's what I took from the question from the board is are we managing and communicating to our vendors, partnering with them that have access to our member data, our PHI, our confidential data? Do we understand their security posture, and are we asking really the right questions? And sometimes those security questionnaires, they might, the intent is they ask the right question, but you know, really it's, do they have a security program? Are they protecting your data? Who has access? It's the same type of questions that we ask ourselves every single day and of our teams and communicate to the business. So that's been my experience with the board is yes, they do care, and so far it's been a good experience.
Great. I love to hear, I'll point out a couple, on the communications part, and I think that's really key. It's, you've made it past that once every so often communicate, and it's a continuous, and now that they're asking you questions, yeah, you're spot on. That's awesome.
So I would echo much of what you said. My board definitely cares. We have many boards. Each hospital has a board. Our Health Alliance plan has a board. The system, which isn't called a system anymore, has a board. And I present at a few of them every quarter, and at the audit and compliance committee level, and then at the full board annually. Sometimes I might give information more often than that. I would say they care a lot, and it wasn't always that way, and I don't mean Henry Ford specifically, but when I started presenting at boards in my career, it was really a check-the-box thing. It was a few minutes, no questions, okay, next, or we're running slow on time, let's, you know, chop this down to 5 minutes. And I think one way to help them care is, first of all, what Wallace said about aligning your goals to their goals. If they see it as a risk, a strategic risk, to them being able to achieve the strategic goals, that's important. Another thing that I learned was to look at things from their perspective. There's an organization called the National Association of Corporate Directors, NACD.org, and there's some free resources out there about cybersecurity reporting to the board. You know, what should they be asking? Try to anticipate their questions, answer them before they ask, because a lot of these board members might not even know what to ask. They might not understand how to incorporate cybersecurity into their, you know, duty of care process. So helping them with that, I think, is important. And again, as was said earlier with the news, that helps a lot, you know, helping them understand. And many of our board members have friends who have been a part of other organizations. But I think the best way to, I'll say, influence them is just like any other influencing, is, you know, treat it like a relationship. You have to have logic, you have to have credibility, follow up on your word, and you have to have a story that is engaging, not something that's going to lead them to look at their phone while you're talking. I think that's what I tend to do.
That's great, Christy. Love the storytelling part, too.
Yeah, so our board cares too. Everyone's board cares. You know, they care, otherwise they wouldn't be there. You know, but the question is, what else do they care about? There's a lot of things that a board has to be worried about, and you know, we're a little biased. We think cyber and we think security is the most important thing, and everyone should care about it as much as we do, and not everyone does. So, you know, part of it is you just kind of have to check your ego when you go into the boardroom, because you know, we're walking in there having prepared for 2 weeks for that 7 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever you're getting. So, you know, we know that presentation inside and out, that 1 or 2 slides, you know, I could recite it, you know, underwater, blindfolded, whatever. But, you know, you have no idea what they were talking about before you got into that room. You have no idea what's on their agenda for later in the day. That might be a huge, merger and acquisition. It might be a huge problem with revenue or whatever. So, when you walk in there, I've had times where I go into the board and I'll get 10 questions. It's like, wow, this is really cool. I'm in there for 35 minutes. There's been other times I go in there, I deliver my thing, I get no response out of anybody. I get up and I walk out. So that's where you really have to kind of check yourself and go like, well, was it me? Well, probably it wasn't you. Probably it was everything else on their agenda. And so, I think that's where security people sometimes, I think we conflate, things about how important we are. And, if you look at like this board thing, I've read a lot of these things that board organization puts out, and they'll say, hey, you should talk about this, you should talk about this, you should talk about this. You add up all the stuff that you should be talking to the board about, and it's like an hour briefing. Well, we get 7 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever, and so, you can't get everything in there that you think is important or that other outsiders think are important. Every security vendor you talk to says, oh yeah, you should talk to the board about this. I ain't talking to the board about that. I'm talking about the board, to the board about these things that I know are important to Lear as an organization, and I got my 5 minutes to do it. So, you really have to kind of keep everything in perspective when you get those moments in front of the board.
I have another point that
Go ahead.
I leveraged, and just to clarify, I have a lot more than 7 minutes now. Now that I'm there quarterly, but what worked for me really well at a former company was I had a secret plant on the board. Somebody who just seemed to ask questions or was concerned about his home wireless and concerned about his passwords, and I requested a meeting with him. Personally, and he flew in, spent 2 days with me, and I put everything kind of in AICPA language for him because that's how a lot of the board members think, and he was great, and we followed up like every quarter, and then he would ask leading questions, and he helped engage folks. So I think if you can get a secret plant at the table, that's a good tip.
That is also called a confidential informant coming from the lawn. And as a retired cop, that's awesome. I love that. Yeah, very powerful tool. It's relationship based.
Just a real tight, quick follow-up.
Go ahead.
Are there any metrics that the board always expects you to deliver in those 7 minutes?
So for the online, his question was, are there any metrics that the board expects or anticipates you to report to? Great question.
So I'll just give a couple. I'm always asked about this. It's phishing and my team's training. You guys have?
Yeah, I've been asked this question so many times as part of panel discussions, and what I keep saying, because I know what people are trying to figure out by asking that question, is like, hey, how do I prepare, or how do I, do something? The reality is every board is different, and so, her board might ask for these 5 metrics, and his board might ask for these 10 metrics. My board doesn't ask for metrics, so I'm more telling stories, and, I put things in terms of frameworks, and, so it's not, hey, this month we had this many of this, and we, because if you think about what a board does, they're not managing the company. The board is oversight. The board is there to figure out if management is doing everything they should be doing. Management manages the company. Yep. So the real question is, what metrics are you showing to your executives? Because, that's where, funding is coming from. Funding doesn't come from the board. Funding comes from the CEO, the CEO's direct reports, the CFO, that's where the funding comes from. That's where you need to really get into, hey, we're seeing a spike in phishing emails, so we need a new fish filter or whatever. But at the board level, they're just trying to figure out, do we have the right people in place, and are they doing the right things? So the metrics don't really matter that much as much as, hey, what does your program look like? What have you done to assess your effectiveness of the program? What framework are you following? Things like that. So I don't even put metrics in my board presentations.
Yeah, I'll add to what not to put on your board presentation is, from my perspective, is, vulnerability remediation. Oh yeah, we just knocked down, 25,000 vulnerabilities. Some of those things, or, we have antivirus deployed on, 99.9% of our endpoints, but don't worry, we'll take care of the small percentage that's left. My experience is there's an expectation that that's actually being done, right? They know people are assigned to it. There's a security program in place. Those are the operational metrics, very important, because then they help you measure your security posture. So then when you get in front of, as you continue to go from, your operational teams, right, your IT teams, your internal teams, and then you start getting in front of the finance team or the sales team, right, because they want to know, okay, well, how's this going to impact my customers or my clients if you have external facing customers. So it's sort of an evolution. I do like to get into, on a daily basis, are we doing the fundamentals, right? Because I think it's the fundamentals that sometimes people relax on, and those are the things that aren't, sort of, oh yeah, of course we do that, but then you find out, wait a minute, we're not quite doing that, right? So the devil is in the details, but so a lot of the operational metrics, I use that as a communication tool to talk to operational business people and IT, right? Those are the things that we need to drive through. We need to make sure we're patching, and did we just catch that latest 0 day that just came out this weekend, right? Are we catching these, and are we patching our systems? And there's so many that we see every single day that it's a continuous conversation, but yeah, I typically stay away from operational metrics to the board.
All right, thanks. So next question is, all right, now we can see it. There have been several major vulnerabilities publicly disclosed over the past year, for example, Log4j, SolarWinds, Kaseya, Colonial Pipeline, et cetera, all of which we heard about earlier in the sessions. And have you changed your vendor risk management program to accommodate your downstream risk, and how? I know you talked to it earlier, but is there, I guess maybe a quick couple takeaways that you can share with others to help with that?
Yeah, so yes. So when I, as Christy mentioned, have lots of, which is great. So the more opportunities that I get to present the security posture of the organization, I very rarely, unless I'm sick or can't do it, I don't turn those down, right? Because those are the forum that we get, and to support the security program and all the people doing all the work and IT and the patching and the, making sure our systems are updated and all the endpoints that were deployed and everything we're looking in our SIM, all those type of things, and threat detection, monitoring, all that kind of good stuff. I take that opportunity to present it internally. But when I look at, and what concerns me the most are my suppliers, right? So we always try to rate our suppliers, oh, this is a critical supplier. Okay, well, I think I got 20 critical suppliers, right? So how do you continue to, who's the most critical, right? And if you got 25 most critical and they have access to your data, then you just need to continue down and look at their overall security program. And, I've often, asked them, not that I can, but I ask them, is there anything that I can help you with? Because if I help you, I can't give you resources, I can't give you my team, but there are other things I can share with you. I can share threat intelligence with you, right? I can have you go to websites. I can have you look at some of the things that we're doing. I can share those best practices, because if I can get them, and I know it's a cliche, to be an extension of my team, if I can get our vendors to be an extension of my team, even if they only have one security professional who's also the IT administrator, who's also responsible for physical security, and and maybe the governor of this town. Who knows, right? It's one of those things where I know people wear multiple hats, and I understand that. But my goal is I have to help them, because if something happens, and it will, right? I mean, I've been involved in multiple vendor cybersecurity attacks. So my goal is to mitigate the risk, just like I would within our organization, and then provide as much assistance as I can outside of, a GoFundMe page or resources, right? I can't do that. So yes, exactly.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to go to the crowd for this one. We're going a little off topic here, but so because the panel has actually, all of them have answered this question throughout the conversation, but the question is, what are some of the biggest communication challenges, and how can they be addressed? They're all from really huge, very mature, very well-defined organizations, very well-funded organizations. Not all of us deal with those type of people all the time. the stories I could tell. But is there anyone in the audience that would share perhaps a perspective from a smaller org on your biggest communication challenges and maybe how you overcame that? Anybody up for that? No one? Okay.
Right here, if anyone wants to answer,
I got another one too. Go ahead.
So communication challenges for me have been represented by, and I call it like, it's kind of like marriage counseling. It's like getting everybody within the organization. I spent 15 years at Cisco, so I have a deep network background. And getting network people to talk to application people, to talk to security people, to talk to DevOps and NetOps, and you know, it was like, it was crazy. That's why I have gray hair, because it was like trying to get everybody together. And for me, I think it was about building some trust and relationships and understanding what people wanted to achieve and the outcomes, right? What their vision was, and then getting everybody to align. For me, that was the biggest challenge of just getting people to understand what it was you're trying to achieve and getting everybody in tune, because it seemed like everybody was kind of going in different directions.
Okay.
It was like a guitar chord. If it wasn't tuned properly, when you strum it, it just didn't sound good. So communication and trust.
Yeah, I honestly think that's a lot of the role that the CISO plays is, you know, when you look at infrastructure and you look at applications and all these other different teams out there, you know, they're all motivated by something else. You know, they're motivated by customer service or user experience or something like that. When it comes to risk, we're the ones that, you know, we need to set that mission. And so when there's that disarray in there on different teams coming together to patch something or to do an upgrade, you know, that's really what we need to be doing. You know, the security teams need to be doing that, because we're, you know, I tell my team this all the time. You know, we're not security people, we're risk managers. You know, it just happens that, you know, it's been called InfoSec and now it's turning into cybersecurity or whatever it's called. Underneath it all, we're risk managers. And so when there's a risk out there, whether it's, you know, log4j because, you know, this piece of code is buried deep in there, or it's, you know, any other, you know, vulnerability that's out there, it's us that really has to cut through all of that chaos and say, here's what the real problem is, and here's what the solution is. So how do we rally a team around that? And we need someone from applications, we need someone from infrastructure, and we got to pull these guys together and, you know, work on that topic. So I agree with you, and that's honestly, that's a lot of my work, is just trying to cut through that.
To add to that, Earl, and I'll provide after that, is I think this is a great saying, culture equals strategy every day of the week, right?
Yep.
Culture is, I'm a sociology major, right? It's about people. And you can have the best strategy in the world, but if you don't have the vision of leadership and people getting along, you're not having dinner at the table, you know?
Yep. Great analogy. Absolutely great. It's team building. It's being the orchestra conductor. It's and applying it all towards the company's goals. So, anyone else? Yes.
I think it's about empathy too, right? So I started an organization many years ago now. Ignore the baby face, I swear. And the deal was is that the network team did not get along with the security team. Just fought every time. And it's about empathy. It's about understanding where they're coming from, right? They're the first ones to get yelled at if something goes wrong on the networking side. No one goes to security first. If they can't send their email, they go to network and yell at them, even if it's an Outlook or an Exchange problem, right? So it's about empathy and understanding. And if you can relate to people and be empathetic to people, then you can really build a strong relationship.
Great. Again, back to the team building, and the team that plays together stays together. So, great job.
Doug, if I could just add to that,
Yeah.
because I think you touched on something really important with the empathy and in building, you know, relationships. You know, not everybody's going to be best friends. Not everybody's going to like each other, right? And there will be differences. I think, and it's just not, you know, I used to think that, you know, security professionals, right, have to have strong, thick skin, because we can't let it, you know, you can't take it personally, you can't let it get to you, right? As Earl said, we communicate mostly risk, right? Because a lot of times we're not hands-on keyboard, right? So in my organization, I don't manage the firewalls, where I used to 15 years ago, right? So things have changed and security's role from, a governance and a risk and a compliance perspective has taken greater, overtaken a lot of the hands-on building servers. We don't install, we have automated tools to install, endpoint security controls and stuff like that. So in building those relationships, I have found that, try not to escalate the situation by getting upset yourself, but to just try to communicate what you're trying to accomplish and why you're trying to accomplish it. And I've even, when the opportunity presents itself, so security professionals and IT professionals, they're the same to me, right? We're all in it together. I can't patch. They do the patching. I just point out what needs to be patched, right? So building that relationship, and I'll stand up for them. When they're getting beat up for something that, could have been a network outage on the firewalls, well, I'm going to be on that bridge line. Even though I don't manage those, I'm going to still be there because I do the policy, but I don't actually do the hands-on. But I'll still be there to support them. And I think if they see that, they know that you're helping them, you're there. Even if you can't necessarily influence the outcome, I think it's a positive step.
I agree. I think also that a lot of the security operations team members have a lot of people that have a lot of good networking backgrounds, things like that. So it always lended people during major outages. So hey, there's troubleshooting going on here. Have a security person. They don't have the access, but they can at least help. Talk through things, be a sounding board. And the more and more you lend those skills out, the more likely it is when something does come up, they come right back to that same person because they built that trust.
Yep. Again, all right back to the relationships and team building. So those are all great moves. So, all right. Oh, I got one more in the back. Go ahead. Yep. Yep, exactly. Yep. Their eyes glaze over like a drunk driver. So I'll make it short and sweet and to the point. It was basically the same thing. It was working, he works for an MSP and has clients that have a lot of specific needs. And it was going back to the point, figure out their goals, figure out their needs, and as an MSP, as a sole IT provider, become that liaison, that contact point, that touch point to help kind of bring it all together in a full circle. So is that close enough? Thank you. All right, so on to the next question. What are some of the hot issues? I think we all know the answers to this, but what are some of the hot current issues and opportunities that you need to make your leadership and or board aware of? Obviously, ransomware, regulatory mandates, general cyber hygiene, but are there other ones? And how do you guys do that in a large organization like yourself?
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I'll lead off. I have an intermediary board, if you will, my Cybersecurity Executive Steering Committee, and that's made up of kind of the top of the house. And we'll work together. I share, but we'll work together on, what's the right message for the board. They may have input. They may say, well, I've talked to this board member. This is important. But definitely, you listed the hot ones. For me, additionally, whenever there's a big strategic thing going on, maybe a merger, acquisition type of thing, we want to make sure that, are we ready for that? You want to be in touch with their reality, what's on their mind, and make it relevant in that way.
Yeah, I always say that people can really only remember 3 things. So I try to keep everything in terms of 3s. So the 3 things that we really focus on are ransomware, we have insider threat, and then, it kind of goes into different things. But, and quite honestly, I just froze out what the 3rd one is. But anyways, ransomware is definitely, number 1 on the list. And then, insider threat for us, because, we don't have a whole lot of PII and we don't have a lot of that, but, we have intellectual property, and so we got to make sure that that's being protected. Oh, and the 3rd one is regulatory stuff.
Right.
So
Compliance.
So when I go to the board, it's usually, here's what we're doing with ransomware, here's what we're doing with regulations. So it's either GDPR or these new things that are coming up by the SEC or coming
Right.
up with DHS, and then insider threat and what we're doing around data loss and things like that. So, and I don't go beyond that, because, once you go beyond that at that level, you're just kind of losing, you lose everyone really once you go past 3.
I'll just add one more, and I think it's been talked about a lot today, is staffing. Depending on your perspective, it's a really good thing, right? New opportunities, new career growth, new challenges. On the other side, when your teams, right, if you lose a resource, that's an impact, and it's really hard to find the resources that you need. I wish it took like a week or 2 or a month, but sometimes it's like 6 to 9 months, and so from a security lens, that presents a risk, because then some of those things that were being performed before might be slipping through the cracks because that person's not there, or we're not working with those teams. So I think we've talked about it today in the conference quite a bit. Is staffing is on my top 3 list.
Okay, great. So, all right. So, Earl, you touched on the next question. Let's get the glasses. Give me your high-level input on the current proposed SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, cyber risk and governance disclosure proposal. And for those of you that aren't familiar with it, I would just strongly recommend that you go out and look it up. Right now it's in open comment phase. I have no dog in this fight, other than the fact I think it could be a really good thing. But the SEC is trying to impose a lot of new regulations. They're about halfway through the 60-day comment period right now, and your comments can influence the outcome of this. But the things they're asking for that are going to be included in this is notification, like a 4-day notification of any event, disclosure as far as your board's and leadership skill in regards to cybersecurity. What kind of plans do you have in place? Look it up online, but it's really worthwhile looking into if you're in any kind of role in cybersecurity, InfoSec, whatever you want to call it. But look it up, Securities and Exchange Commission. So, but what I'd like from the panel is just give me your quick feedback on what your opinion of this is and what your feelings are on it, as far as thumbs up, thumbs down.
First of all, I think it's a really good thing.
Great.
So I think, once you read through it all and distill it, and there's some really good summaries out there of what's in there. And I think overall for the industry and overall for, just public companies, this is a good thing. Now, I think if you're a smaller company, now this could be a game changer for certain companies. Like
Right.
for us, it's probably not as big of a deal because we're already, pretty mature on that, and I'm sure it's going to be the same for, everyone up here. But if you're a medium-sized company or a small company, I think this could be a really big change for you because, not only do you have to report an incident that's material. First of all, you got to figure out what material is. So that's kind of my big question. But once you get past that, the disclosure pieces of it are really what's going to force some change into organizations, because you're going to have to disclose what you're doing from a security program, what processes you have in there, how you're keeping the board informed, how you're keeping executives informed. And like for us, it's not a big deal because we're already doing a lot of that through our ESG reporting. Because a lot of like ESG, which came out, 2 years ago, asked for the same thing. You have to disclose what you're doing on a security perspective. So now it's just taking that and now putting it in your annual report. But if you're a small company that doesn't report to the board,
Right.
or doesn't have a CISO, or doesn't have a robust security program, you're going to be scrambling because a lot of this is also going to depend on the accounting firms, because when you put this stuff into your annual report, they're the ones that kind of vet the terminology and the verbiage that are going in there. So if you can get away with just putting a one sentence in there that says we have a security program and we report to the board, that might work for the first year. But I think over time, investors are going to start to say this isn't a sufficient disclosure,
Right.
and you're going to have to get more robust, and then that's going to pull a lot of people out of the woodwork and say, like, all right, well, we're going to have to do something so we can put it in our annual report. So I think it's good overall, but it's going to be a lot of work for some smaller companies or people that don't have a robust security program in place.
Right.
Thumbs up. I think it's really good. I think it'll start to make the problem more of a business problem, a real business problem.
Bingo.
Yeah.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner on that comment.
I'll echo the comments as well. Super, super good. What concerns me most is the execution of those things, because you can't take the comments and drop them on someone's desk and say, oh, look what we're going to do, right? I think the business is going to look to us and security professionals like yourselves and say, okay, what is it that we need to do first, right? What is it that we need to do, just like any other privacy or compliance regulatory guidelines from any states or federal level? It's like, okay, what does this mean to us? And maybe you've actually got it in your roadmap. Maybe it's something, oh, you know what? We're doing that in Q4. We're covered, right? So I think it's really dissecting what's required, and then, reassuring your business of what you have and what you don't have and what you would recommend as something to invest in, because a lot of times investment's not just dollars, it's also resources, and it could take away from other priorities that are going on in the business. So it can be contentious because they're like, why is this happening? It's like, why did this happen to me? Why are you pushing this on me? And it's not a push. It's more of a, this is new, this is good, put it in a positive light. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to address the execution of it.
I kind of look at it as a HIPAA for non-HIPAA type companies. And the growing pains that we had to go through, I've spent several years in healthcare management, and the privacy aspect. But I look at it that way because it's for the non-regulated industries, but it's where you're going to get is where we all want to be, I think. That's my take on it. So, where's Kim? How much time do we have?
I'm right here.
Oh. And do we have any online questions, or can I go to the audience for some quick questions?
Yeah, but I have one question that they've been asking a lot at my past panels. And since there's so many sponsors in here, if you repeat this, what does it take for vendors to get in front of the CISOs?
They're getting their emails are getting flooded. So that would be could you repeat that question though?
So I'll repeat the question. The question was, from the vendor point of view, the partner vendor point of view, what does it take to get in front of you? And I'll be smart and say this is probably a whole pile of drink tickets, but just joking. So I'll pass that off to my panel.
So I'll go first this time. We love our strategic partners. There's no doubt about that. We could not be who we are without them. And so I think Arun was talking about it earlier, having, regular sessions with them and make sure you're building those relationships too, because they're important. But I kid you not, I get hundreds of inquiries unsolicited on LinkedIn, my email, my phone, text. And if I were to answer all of them, I might spend 4 minutes with all of them and never do my job. It is so hard to manage this aspect of it. So I appreciate the question, because we need to meet the right vendors. We need to pair up. Trust me, I will Google, which vendors I need if I think of a need. But that's not going to make you feel better, because there's going to be 100 returns. I think really it's through things like this, through relationships. I'm going to reach out to those strategic vendors first if I have a need. I'm building my roadmap. I don't take many cold calls, but I do. I make a promise to myself that I'll take something unique once a quarter. and my team will be like, okay, this is the one, right? And it's like, and I'll do that just so I stay current, and that seems like, oh, just one a quarter. And that's not very much, but that's a lot to ask. I'm going to pull my team together. I'm going to meet with you. I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're providing, that I even need it. But I learned something from those. So I do try to incorporate that. But I think these types of conferences and the support that you give here makes me then recognize your name. I might not have gone to your booth today, but I see your names, and I'll be more likely to answer your email. Which one next?
Earl?
Okay, so my first answer is don't call me, I'll call you.
Yeah.
But it's not that cut and dry. I mean, like Christy said, it's stuff like this. We do a lot of these things. We go to a lot of these conferences, and I'd much rather be in this kind of a situation, look around and say, well, that looks interesting, let's go see what that is, versus, same thing. My inbox is, there's probably 400 new messages every single day in my inbox, and 300 of them are coming from vendors, and I don't appreciate that. So you're not really scoring any points with that. Basically I just go down and delete before I even open the email. So and that's just being honest, but there are things where, if I see an interesting technology, I'll see who's in that space, and I'll reach out and do that. But then, and I'm probably jinxing myself if I say this, but there are actual times where I'll open up some emails and look at it and say, well, here's an interesting thing, but the bottom line is it just really comes down to relationships. I see the same faces out here that I've seen for 10, 15 years, and they're the ones that I'm going to talk to first, especially if they're working at a new company and they have some new technology. And Dave right there, he's working for a company I never even heard of, but he reached out, and I'm like, all right, I'll see what you got. And and I was like, wow, that's really cool. So it's hard. There is no easy answer. You're going to have to earn it. I mean, at the end of the day, you're just going to have to earn it, because an email isn't going to get it done.
I'll just add that, one, I love the innovation that was brought in here today, right? So some of the companies I'm not 100% heard the name, but I'm not 100% familiar with. So I love innovation. If I could get paid and make a living at just looking and working with vendors every day, because I like to provide feedback too, because maybe in my next career I'll go down that path. But because one of the things that I like to do is not just look at the technology, but to see if I have a gap, if it's something that it's in a technology that could fit an area where we might have additional risk that could be that you could help with. And so, like Earl, I glance at a lot of the emails, but it's really easy to see if it's not anything like, hey, you know what, I'm working with Christy and this is what we do, right? Then I'll be like, oh, well, wait a minute, let me see what she's looking at. So it does help if it's a little bit more targeted to, my name as far as spelling it correctly. Maybe it's hard, but at least the industry. I work for Blue Cross Blue Shield in Michigan, right? Not Kansas. So, knowing who I am so that at least I have an idea that you've done some research on me, because if it's interesting enough and it catches my attention, and I might reach out to my colleagues and say, hey, have you worked with this vendor? Then I'm more apt to reach out to you and say, hey, I'm curious. And then I'll say, is there any potential shows? Are you going to be in Detroit anytime soon? So that I can schedule something. Because the impromptu, conversations, if you're not in, for me, if you're not in the contacts, it's too many spam emails. It's car insurance, right? It's just, I just can't take all those calls. So those just go all to voicemail. But I would encourage the targeted conversations, looking up the industry that we're in, understanding some of our pain points, like these new regulations that might be coming down and how you could help out. And then before I come to like these events, I look to see who's going to be there. And so that I'm like, you know what? Never heard of this company. This could be something interesting. You know what? I don't really like maybe my current DLP solution, so I want to look at a new one. Maybe I want to change it because, in the next 3 or 4 years, we're going to make some changes in the organization. So I look at it so that if you can help me, I will do everything in my power to help you, right? I'll provide, if anything, I can provide you feedback on why your product doesn't work today, but it could work in 6 months and a year, and then there's just that, the courtesy, in 6 months, if anything changes, I promise I will reach out to you. But if not, then it's, it's just something that's not a fit.
Great. Great answers. Thank you. Good question, too. Thanks, Kim. Okay. I'll add, I'm in a unique position because I'm the moderator, but I'm also a vendor, and I partner with other people as well. But the thing I would go back to is everything the three of them said was relationships and organizations. Events like this, FutureCon, there's other ones that are really good too, but this is a great org. ISACA, CSA, ISC squared, I think we had people out there, but those groups, and even InfraGard, it's back to the relationship. So and that's from my point of view. So, yep. One more quick question? About 7 minutes? Okay. So this one's actually a little crazy here, but so off top. All right. So the question is, tell us one thing about yourself that has nothing to do with cyber, whether it be a hobby or something like that. I'll lead. So I'm a winter lover. I absolutely love the winter. People call me nuts. I actually collect and restore old snowmobiles. I own over 100 snowmobiles. So, and the day I can't pick up a 300-pound snowmobile anymore is the day I'm going to quit collecting, but it keeps me healthy too. So, and that has nothing to do with cyber. They're just a chunk of steel with a motor on them.
Okay, for me,
yes, I am nuts.
my son started playing football a few years ago, and I was scared to death of him being out there with all those other big boys, so I wanted to find a way to get on the sideline. So I started taking pictures, and I've taken hundreds of thousands of pictures since then. It's only been a few years, and I take pictures of many high school sports. I've done some weddings. I've done senior pictures, family pictures. I have more cameras than I care to mention. And it started out a hobby, and now my husband would call it an addiction.
Mine's easy. I spent 13 great years at GM, so I'm a car guy. I grew up in a car family. My dad worked for GM his entire career, so it's cars for me. A little favored towards GM, no offense, Ford, but yeah. So it's cars for me. I love car shows, and if anybody has a deal on a pole barn where I could store a classic car, look me up.
Same here. I'm running out of space too. I have 2 pole barns, and they're both full.
Man, I'm pretty boring because like my hobbies are being on the board of the CSA, being on the board of InfraGard, doing this stuff. But in the fall, I officiate high school football games. So
cool.
It's really not that different than security. It's risk management. I'm trying to keep those little kids from getting beaten up by the big kids. So I look out for all the mothers up in the stands. But yeah, I've been doing that for 25 years.
Oh, that's cool.
I've done a couple finals at Ford Field, so that's pretty cool when you get there. But yeah, that's it. Other than that, it's security all day, all night.
I coached varsity football at Lapeer West for 4 years. Maybe I saw you on the field. It would have been in that time frame.
Not a big fan of coaches.
I was kind. All right. We got a couple minutes for any open questions from the audience. How much do I have? 2, 3? 3 minutes. Didn't even need my glasses to see the 3. Go ahead. Can't see your name tag, so sorry.
So Earl was talking about kind of the challenge with finding people, right? And he was mentioning, right, there's kind of the draft, as he said, right? And there's free agency, right? And how do you retain talent? So I was curious of like working from home, maybe going back to the office, like how do you build a culture where people feel challenged, that they can stay, that they can grow within the organization? Like what are you guys doing to kind of keep people and have them grow and stay within the organization instead of potentially leaving?
Did everybody hear that?
So what are we
Did you catch
doing?
it on the mic?
What are we doing to retain talent?
Go ahead.
It's probably one of my biggest jobs is to retain talent. And a couple things I do. I'll be brief so the others can talk. I actually have a one-on-one with every person on my team. I try to do it at least twice a year, and that's a time commitment. But I try to get to know all of them. Little plug: we use Rangeforce, and we love it. Putting together a development plan, but I think relationships. Again, I try to actually create one with each person. But there are more tactics. I'll let these guys talk about.
I'll ditto on the one-on-ones, and even, when you get a chance, the 360s, right, to try to get some additional. So I'll just add, I think the listening skills are really important, and letting everybody know they have a voice. So I think a lot of people, they just want to be heard. They want their ideas to be, someone to tell them to. So I think a lot of employees want to matter to their organizations and make a difference. And so I think it's important to provide a voice.
No, I agree. The old adage that people don't leave companies, they leave managers,
Yep.
is 100% true. So people, they leave us, and we got to make sure that they're not leaving us. And so, so I have a team meeting, a full team meeting with everyone, once a month. So that's, everyone in India, everyone in Germany, everyone in South America, everyone is on a call once a month. And then, multiple times a week I have, one-on-ones with my direct reports. And then I make them have weekly calls with all of their direct reports. So nobody is left on an island, because that's the last thing I want is, we build up a cyber defense center in India. I don't want the India guys, to feel somehow different than the North America team. So we include them on everything we do. We have one person in South America, so I make sure that someone's talking to him every single day so that he doesn't feel like he's on an island. And I try to tie people up with, I have one incident response person in Mexico, but I also have one risk manager, compliance person in Mexico. So I make those two, talk throughout the week. So nobody should be on an island at any point during a week. So that's how we try to keep everyone engaged. And then we just have to show passion in what we do. So when we have these monthly calls, it's not just like, going through the motions of it. I get in there and I'm passionate about security anyways, but if I got a bunch of people listening to me and they have to listen to me, man, I can go. I can go for, a long time. So, you show the passion, build those relationships, and make sure they don't leave us. That's how you keep that going.
Great, thank you. Anything else, Christy?
I had one more thing to add.
All right, go for it.
I call that intentional connectedness, and we did that when we sent everybody home. But the thing I wanted to add was diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. And for our team, Henry Ford Health is, very big on, all that we can do. And we've had a commitment as a team of, so many 100 impact hours, and we are doing this together. We're getting cross-functional teams to go do impact hours to support that cause. So anything you can do, I think, to help others is going to bring people together.
Great, thank you. So there's been a lot of talk today, and I'll make a quick shameless plug. If anybody wants a really good ransomware resource, just a company I work for is called BlackFog. BlackFog.com. We have a monthly ransomware report. It's amazing. Yeah, just check it out if you get a chance. More importantly, I want to thank the panel. Great job. And everyone here for sticking it out and some great questions and interactions. And hope to see you at the next FutureCon.